Jedi are cool, and I want to play one in D&D. I'm Chase Tries again, and I don't know how introductions work, but I do know I want to play a Jedi in Dungeons & Dragons. This has been a brain bug for me for a while, and I've considered a lot of hypothetical builds. The goal of this video is to present you with a few different options that feel like a Jedi, but fit within a store-brand fantasy setting, and are flexible for your DM's campaign. I'm going to present 3 builds to you, 1 using the Player's Handbook, and 2 using the PHB and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. For stats, I'm going with the standard array as a template, and the builds will only go up to level 3. My goal is to get to the flavor I'm chasing as early as possible, and then leave things open-ended so that the campaign can steer your development from there. I won't include an ancestry here. Make your Jedi a lizard folk, or a bugbear, or a sapient ooze. Do what thou wilt, it is of no concern to me. Also no multiclassing. If we started multiclassing, we'd be here all day. Okay, so them's the mechanical parameters. How do we build a Jedi? Well, there's a metric ton of Jedi, and between the new canon and the old expanded universe, we see a ton of different powers and fighting styles and roles. So I picked 1 Jedi. As the title of this video has probably spoiled, I'm basing these builds on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Why Kenobi? Well, he's sort of the archetypal Jedi. He's the first fully fledged Jedi we meet back in episode 4, and we've got so much Kenobi material now, it's easy to slice up his life into chunks. And that's what we're gonna do here. Kenobi the Apprentice, Kenobi the General, and Kenobi the Hermit. Each stage we see him at offers a different style and attitude that I think will give us some room for builds that are diverse but true to a shared core. First up is Obi-Wan circa Phantom Menace. For the Padawan learner, I went with a monk and picked the Acolyte background. At least on screen, Padawan Kenobi focuses more on the physical abilities than on his wits and deception. Monk makes this a pretty straightforward build with lots of impressive Jedi-style tricks down the line. No magic, no armor, but our monk is proficient with simple weapons and short swords, and at level 2 we get Ki. Acolyte gives us proficiency in insight and religion, as well as 2 languages. Monk gives us 2 more skills. I picked acrobatics and stealth. We also have proficiency with artisan's tools or a musical instrument. I opted for cartographer's tools because Obi-Wan loses a whole planet in the next movie, but you might pick something more useful for your campaign instead of a joke. Now that we've got proficiencies lined up, I'll allocate my ability scores. Our highest score goes to Dex, second highest in Wisdom, then Constitution, Intelligence, Strength, and Charisma in descending order. Fair game if you want to swap Charisma and Strength. Between proficiencies and the needs of the class, those are the least useful stats to us. I put Strength higher because I didn't want him to completely suck at athletics checks, and because episode 1 Obi-Wan is kind of a jerk. For level 1, that leaves us to choose equipment and languages. The right choices there can vary from campaign to campaign, so I'll leave those decisions to you and your DM. I'd probably start with a short sword for the weapon, but that's just for flavor, and we're going to be changing gear pretty shortly regardless. Unarmored defense means we'll be just fine fighting in Jedi robes, and martial arts means we can use Dex for attack and damage rolls. At level 2, no real choices, but we get key points and their uses, and unarmored movement, which nicely reflects the speed boost the Jedi show off from time to time. And at level 3, we get deflect missiles, and the big question, which monastic tradition to pick? Actually, I don't think that's a big question. I think it's pretty straightforward. Other monks might work, but for the purposes of flavor, I picked the way of the Kensei from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And for Kensei weapons, I opted for the longsword and the longbow. Choose your own ranged weapon, I just picked one. I think just about any qualifying blade would do, but the Sunblade in the DMG, basically a lightsaber but magic, is a longsword. Plus, that's 1 additional weapon proficiency to add to the list. That's the ever straightforward monk build. We'll leave it at level 3 and move on to the next build, a fighter. I opted for a fighter to represent Obi-Wan during the Clone Wars. Still a very physical, swordplay forward depiction of Kenobi, but the bag of magic tricks is important here. For background, I went with soldier. It makes thematic sense, and the military rank feature is a nice little bonus. Fighter gives us proficiency in all weapons, armor, and shields. That's nice. We get athletics and intimidation proficiencies from Soldier. I went with animal handling and insight from the fighters list, but I think any of the options there could be thematically relevant. Soldier also gets us a tool proficiency. I'd opt for a vehicle over a gaming set just for utility. Weapon choice is a little more important this time. We're definitely going to want something with finesse so we can pump our highest score into dex. I'm going with the rapier for the d8 damage. We don't need a light weapon because we're going to need a free hand anyway. More on that later. The rest of your equipment I leave to you. I opted for leather armor because it just seemed more in line with the flavor than chainmail. Now, ability scores. Highest in dex again, second highest in intelligence, third highest in con, then wisdom, strength, and charisma in descending order. Admittedly, Hello There era Obi-Wan is significantly more charismatic than when he referred to an actual child as another pathetic life form, but you can only have so many good stats unless the dice are with you. As a level 1 fighter, we get our second wind and a fighting style of our choice. We're going to pick dueling. That's important. We made dexterity our highest ability score and picked a finesse weapon so we can use dexterity as our attack and damage modifier. Dueling gives us a +2 bonus to damage rolls if we're fighting with a single one-handed weapon, and that means we've got a hand free, which is good because we're going to need it to cast spells. Level 2 we get action surge. At level 3 we pick our martial archetype. We're going Eldritch Knight. Weapon Bond gives us some cool lightsaber flavor and utility, and we get spells. At level 3, you've got 2 first level spell slots, and 2 cantrips and 3 spells. Admittedly, being limited to evocation and abjuration spells is kind of a flavor challenge, but I think there's some cool options on the table. For my cantrips, I went with Minor Illusion and True Strike. You get 1 spell that doesn't have to be evocation or abjuration, so I chose Featherfall. I think Jump is also a cool, flavorful choice here, and there are a few others that could work. For my other 2 spells, I went Shield and Thunderwave. Shield is just a handy utility, and Thunderwave gives you some crowd control, and its knockback has a big force push thing going for it. So that's our fighter build. Now, my favorite build, we're making Old Kenobi as a Warlock. I've mentioned running a Jedi as a Warlock before and received skepticism in response, but hear me out. Old Ben, as he appears in A New Hope, is all about subtle trickery and manipulation, scaring off Tusken Raiders, and using Jedi mind tricks on stormtroopers. And we can get a lot of trickery mileage out of the Warlock. We're going Archfey, not Hexblade. The Force makes sense to me as a patron of sorts, and I think the Archfey abilities can all be reasonably reflavored in that direction with no mechanical messiness. We get light armor and simple weapons. I'm not worried about equipment. We're taking the Hermit background, which gives us proficiency with an herbalism kit, medicine, and religion. For skill proficiencies, I'll take Arcana and Deception from the Warlock list. Persuasion would be nice, but alas, it's not on the table. Ability scores will make Charisma the highest, then Dex, then Con. Intelligence or Wisdom is in 4th place, and Strength comes in dead last. With Archfey, we get Fey Presence, which I think does a great job of mimicking Obi-Wan's trick to scare off the Tusken Raiders. We'll cover spells in just a minute, but one of our cantrips will definitely be Eldritch Blast. At level 2, when we get invocations, we'll start with Repelling Blast and dip into Xanathar's to grab Grasp of Hadar. That way we can use Eldritch Blast for Force Push and Force Pull. At level 3, no surprise, we'll go Pact of the Blade. I went with Dex, so I'll be summoning it as a finesse weapon. Now, spells. At level 3, we know 4 spells that can be 1st or 2nd level, and 2 cantrips. For cantrips, we're taking Eldritch Blast, obviously, and there are some other good options on the table, but I'm going Mage Hand for a telekinesis vibe. I'm going to grab 2 1st level spells, Sleep and Comprehend Languages, and 2 2nd level spells, Invisibility and Suggestion. Sleep and the Invocations allow you to do some crowd control in combat, and Comprehend Languages and Suggestion give you some handy tools for dealing with NPCs out of combat. And Kenobi was essentially invisible when sneaking around the Death Star. This is actually really close to my very first character, and while he wasn't the most effective in combat, he was really fun and could hold his own pretty consistently. So those are the 3 builds. I've been intrigued by the Force as a Warlock patron concept for a while, so as a bonus, I built one. Is it balanced? Probably not, but you can find it on GM Binder. Link in the description. Also, seeing as it's May the 4th and I'm a giant nerd, the same GM Binder upload has stats for a couple of Rancors, loot and salvage tables, and a set of Rancor armor. Mom says I have to do a call to action at the end of the video, so there are a jillion ways you could build a Force user in D&D. How would you do it? Tell me in the comments. I played with Barbarian, Paladin, Sorcerer, and variations of the builds in this video. There are a ton of ways you could do it, and I'm really interested to see what other people come up with. That's the video. Thank you for watching. Share this with somebody cool. Until next time.